They ruled America with unimaginable wealth. Railroad barons? Social titans. The name Vanderbilt meant power, but behind the glittering mansions and champagne-soaked parties lurked something sinister, a dynasty crumbling from the inside. This is the shocking true story of how America's richest family destroyed themselves in just 3 generations. Before we dive into this jaw-dropping tale of greed, betrayal, and spectacular failure, hit that subscribe button and smash the bell icon. You're watching History Exposed TV, where we uncover the darkest secrets history tried to bury. Trust me, you won't believe what happened to this family's billions. Now let's get into it. The immigrant who started it all. Our story begins in 1650 when a nobody named Jan Aertsen sailed from the Netherlands to America. He wasn't royalty. He wasn't rich. He was a servant working for a wealthy family called the Van Cortlandts. This immigrant needed a fresh identity for his new world, so he merged the Dutch word van, meaning from, with his hometown De Bilt. The name Vanderbilt was born, but here's the twist: it would take nearly 200 years before that name meant anything at all. The ruthless Commodore. Fast forward to the 1800s. Jan's great-grandson, Cornelius Vanderbilt, nicknamed the Commodore, clawed his way up from poverty on Staten Island. This man was absolutely ruthless. In 1810, he borrowed just $100 from his mother and started operating a small passenger ferry. But Cornelius wasn't satisfied with small-time operations. He wanted domination. He slashed prices, crushed competitors, and built a shipping empire that controlled the Hudson River. His rivals were so terrified of him, they literally paid him $40,000 per month, later raised to $56,000, just to stay out of their business. When the California gold rush exploded in 1849, Cornelius created the Accessory Transit Company, transporting desperate fortune seekers through Nicaragua. It was a gold mine. By the 1850s, Cornelius pivoted to railroads with the same predatory tactics. He gobbled up the New York and Harlem Railroad, the Hudson River Railroad, and the legendary New York Central Railroad, consolidating them into a transportation monopoly. By 1873, he controlled rail service from New York City all the way to Chicago. The Commodore moved his family to Manhattan, building an impressive home in what's now Greenwich Village. When Cornelius died in 1877, he was the wealthiest man in America, worth $100 million. more than what the U.S. Treasury held at the time. In today's money, that's over $3 billion. The shock and will that tore the family apart, but then came the bombshell that set everything in motion. The Commodore left $1 million to establish Vanderbilt University in Nashville. Noble, right? But what he did with the rest sparked absolute chaos. Out of his massive family, 1 son and 9 daughters, he left virtually everything, about $95 million, to just one heir, his eldest son, William Henry Vanderbilt, called Billy. His other children were furious. They felt robbed, betrayed, humiliated. 3 siblings dragged Billy to court, accusing him of hiring a spiritualist who manipulated their dying father into rewriting his will. The scandal was explosive. To avoid a public trial that would destroy the family's reputation, Billy settled, tossing each sibling an additional $500,000 pocket change compared to what he inherited. The son, who doubled everything but hated it, Billy was brilliant at making money. In just 8 years, he doubled his father's fortune to over $200 million by expanding the New York Central Railroad. He was earning an estimated $19.73 per minute, but Billy absolutely despised his wealth. He complained constantly that money made him anxious and blamed it for his poor health. He envied his poorer neighbors and said, "Inherited wealth is a real handicap to happiness." In 1885, Billy suffered a fatal stroke at age 64. Unlike his father, Billy divided his fortune among 3 sons, Cornelius II, William Kissam, and George Washington. This decision splitting the inheritance was the first crack in the foundation, and it would prove catastrophic. The 3rd generation, where everything started crumbling, Billy's sons took the family fortune and set it on fire. Cornelius, Vanderbilt II tried to run the railroad empire but was far too generous with charitable donations, bleeding money constantly. His brother William Kissam cared more about racehorses than business, and their extravagant lifestyles? Absolutely out of control. William married a social climbing woman named Alva Erskine Smith in 1875. Alva was obsessed with status, luxury, and power. She collected mansions like they were baseball cards, eventually owning 9 of them. She bought yachts, threw parties costing $50,000, equivalent to $1.3 million today, and spent 3 years building a single palatial home. But here's what she wanted most: acceptance into New York's elite society, which rejected the Vanderbilts as new money trash. Her solution? Force her daughter Consuelo into a loveless marriage with Charles Spencer Churchill, the Duke of Marlborough. In 1895, the bride who was sold for a title-poor Consuelo never stood a chance. Alva was a monster of a mother. She beat Consuelo with riding crops and forced her to wear a steel rod to correct her posture. When the opportunity arose to marry her daughter to British royalty, Alva pounced. The Duke needed money to save his crumbling estate. Alva needed a royal title. Neither Consuelo nor the Duke wanted this marriage, but it happened anyway. The marriage lasted 26 miserable years before ending in divorce. Shortly before the wedding, Alva herself divorced William on grounds of adultery, though many suspected William hired a woman to pretend to be his mistress just to escape his nightmare marriage, the biggest house in America, and its biggest mistake. Meanwhile, the youngest brother, George Washington Vanderbilt II, had a dream: build the most magnificent house in American history. He purchased 125,000 acres in North Carolina and hired renowned architect Richard Morris Hunt. The result? Biltmore Estate, a 250-room, 178,000 square foot palace modeled after French Renaissance chateau. It cost $6 million to build, over $200 million in today's currency. It remains the largest privately owned house in America. But there was a problem. Maintaining this monstrosity was financially crushing. When George died unexpectedly in 1914 from a botched appendectomy, his widow Edith was left with an impossible burden. Eventually, they had no choice. In 1930, George's daughter Cornelia did the unthinkable. She opened Biltmore to the public, charging admission just to keep the lights on. The Vanderbilts, once the most exclusive family in America, were now selling tickets to gawk at their lifestyle, tragedies, scandals, and a sinking ship. The family's troubles multiplied like a curse. Reginald Claypool Vanderbilt was a notorious gambler and womanizer who hemorrhaged the family fortune on bad bets and worse decisions. His brother Cornelius III, nicknamed Neely, fell in love with Grace Graham Wilson in 1896, but his parents hated her. So Neely eloped. His furious parents essentially disowned him, leaving him only $500,000, while his brother, Alfred, received nearly $70 million. Alfred Gwynn Vanderbilt seemed more responsible until his wife, Ellen, abruptly left him 7 years into their marriage, allegedly because of his affair. But Alfred's story ended heroically and tragically. In 1915, Alfred boarded the RMS Lusitania for a business trip to Liverpool. Off Ireland's coast, a German U-boat torpedo struck the ship. As it sank rapidly, Alfred gave his life vest to a terrified woman clutching her baby. Over 1,000 people perished that day, including Alfred, who died a hero. The custody battle that shocked America by the 1930s. The Great Depression hammered America, and the Vanderbilts hard. Reggie Vanderbilt drank himself to death, leaving behind his wife, Gloria Morgan, and their 18-month-old daughter, also named Gloria. Gloria Morgan had expensive tastes, but no Vanderbilt inheritance. The family despised her. However, little Gloria would inherit a massive fortune when she turned 21. Reggie's sister, Gertrude Vanderbilt, wanted custody of little Gloria and took Gloria Morgan to court in what became the trial of the century. The testimony was scandalous. Nurses claimed Gloria Morgan's home was filthy and infested with rats. A maid testified she saw Gloria Morgan in bed with another woman. The courtroom erupted in shock, but the most devastating testimony came from 10-year-old Gloria herself. who said she was terrified of her mother. Gertrude won custody, though she proved to be cold and distant. Young Gloria found motherly love only from her nanny. Gloria's rise and her son's rejection of wealth. Gloria Vanderbilt transformed her traumatic childhood into success. She became a Broadway actress, television personality, painter, and fashion icon. In the 1970s, she partnered with Indian designer Mohan Murjani to create designer jeans with her signature swan logo. They were skin-tight, revolutionary, and wildly successful. Her fashion empire was reportedly worth $100 million at its peak. Gloria married 4 times. Her third marriage to director Sidney Lumet lasted 7 years. Her fourth marriage to Wyatt Emery Cooper gave her 2 sons and 15 happy years until Wyatt died during routine surgery in 1978. Then, in 1988, tragedy struck again when her 23-year-old son Carter jumped from their 14th floor Manhattan penthouse. Her surviving son? Anderson Cooper, the CNN anchor. Here's the shocking part. Anderson Cooper has publicly stated he doesn't believe in inheritance. His mother told him early on there would be no trust fund. "I think it's an initiative sucker. I think it's a curse," Cooper said. When Gloria died in 2019 at age 95, Anderson inherited approximately $1.5 million, a pittance compared to the family's former billions. Cooper built his career without the Vanderbilt name. He's living proof the fortune completely evaporated. The reunion where nobody was rich want to know how bad it got. In 1973, the Vanderbilt family held a reunion at Vanderbilt University. 120 family members attended. As they looked around the room, they realized something absolutely stunning. Not a single person there was even a millionaire. The wealthiest family in American history, $200 million in the 1880s, equivalent to $50 billion today, was completely, utterly broke. Why did it all disappear? So what destroyed the Vanderbilt fortune? First, no financial education. The Commodore made his heirs' lives easy, but never taught them how to keep wealth. Fellow tycoon John Jacob Astor created trusts requiring a 50-50th split between children and grandchildren for every generation, preserving his fortune. The Vanderbilts? No structure whatsoever. Second, too many heirs. Each generation multiplied, splitting the pot into smaller pieces. More mouths to feed, more lifestyles to fund. Third, insane spending. Mansions costing millions, yachts, parties with $50,000. Price tags, fashion, racehorses, they spent faster than they earned. Fourth, empty mansions. They built palatial estates used only weeks per year. Maintaining these properties cost fortunes. By the 1940s, most New York City Vanderbilt mansions were demolished, reduced to rubble. Fifth, business stagnation. The fortune came from railroads, but America evolved. Automobiles, airplanes, new transportation. The Vanderbilts failed to adapt. The third generation cared more about parties than profits. Sixth, the Great Depression. The 1930s economic collapse devastated whatever remained. Even in death, the Vanderbilts spent lavishly. Their family mausoleum on Staten Island was designed by famous architect Richard Morris Hunt, modeled after a French abbey. It remains a New York City landmark today. The legacy that remains what's left of the Vanderbilt empire. Vanderbilt University in Tennessee, endowed by the Commodore in 1873, thrives as one of America's premier institutions. Biltmore Estate operates as a museum and winery, run by George Vanderbilt's grandsons. The Breakers, a 70-room, 138,000-square-foot Newport mansion is leased to the Preservation Society of Newport County for $1 per year. The Whitney Museum of American Art was founded in 1930 by artist Gertrude Vanderbilt. Whitney with 500 works from her personal collection. But the money? The billions? Gone. The Vanderbilt story is a cautionary tale of what happens when wealth meets arrogance, entitlement, and zero financial planning. They prove that no matter how rich you are, stupidity and excess will destroy everything. That's the brutal truth about the Vanderbilt family, from $200 million to nothing in 3 generations. If this story blew your mind, smash that like button right now. Subscribe to History Exposed TV and ring the bell so you never miss another shocking story from history's darkest corners. Drop a comment below. What would you do if you inherited billions? Would you protect it or blow it like the Vanderbilts? And here's something crazy, we've got even more incredible stories waiting for you. Check out our entire channel for deep dives into history's most fascinating mysteries, scandals, and secrets. History Exposed TV is your destination for the truth they don't teach in school. See you in the next one, history lovers. Until then, remember, wealth without wisdom is just a countdown to disaster.